Okay, brothers and sisters, back again. I said part 3 coming is part 4. You know, it takes a while to break this down. Just want to go verse by verse, and so we get a proper understanding about this. One thing we have to be clear of too: you as a Christian, you have a spirit, and Paul will make that clear. You have a mind, you have a spirit. You have an understanding. You have a natural way to understand, and you have a spirit that is able to retain knowledge in itself. We have a spirit, people. We are spiritual beings. It is part of us. So, okay. So, now I'm at verse chapter 6. It says, "Now, brethren, if I come unto you speaking with tongues, what shall I profit you, except I shall speak to you either by revelation, or by knowledge, or by prophesying, or by doctrine?" So we see right here, Paul is trying to get us in a certain mode of thinking. He's not saying, see, if tongues itself were wrong, we're not supposed to speak them, he would just say don't speak in tongues. He's not discounting the gift. He's actually establishing the gift and saying that it is a gift, it is valid. But he's trying to get us to use it properly. At the beginning of this at the beginning of this lesson, in the first video, you see I start off speaking in tongues. Now, what I will show you, what you will see is that tongues aren't uncontrollable. You can speak them. You can use them when you could be led by the Spirit too. But if you are gifted with the gift of speaking tongues, you can speak in tongues when you want to. You can take that tongue that God gave you, and you give it to you privately, and you can't come to church the next day and speak the same tongue. So what he's trying to let us know is that these gifts are given to us, but we are able to apply them, and we have to apply them correctly. So he is correcting the Corinthian church on their use of tongues. He's not correcting them for using tongues. He's correcting them for their use of tongues, how they apply it. This is clear in the Corinthians chapter 14. Now, if you have a bias, you feel it has to be this way, then I could show you this to the, I could keep showing it to you over and over, but because of your bias, you're not going to listen. But Apostle Paul wrote this, and certain things are clear, certain things follow one another. He says, "Now, brethren, if I come unto you speaking with tongues," he's saying that there are tongues. "But I come unto you speaking with tongues, what shall I profit you, except I speak to you either by revelation, or by knowledge, or by prophesying, or by doctrine?" Now, obviously the tongue is something. If you come to me speaking in the tongue, and it's a language I don't understand, I'm not understanding what you're saying, how am I profiting you? See, the thing is, some people think they're doing you a service. That's why I say, people got things off on both ends of the spectrum. That by coming to you, speaking you a tongue in front of you, that I'm blessing you somehow. That I'm giving you some type of gift by showing off my gift. And this is what Paul is coming against. And he doesn't want this happening in the church. In the church, we have things that we should do. There's things you could do privately, but publicly, there's a certain order you have to go on. When you privately, there's a different thing, but this is a public thing. So Paul is trying to set things right in the public congregation when we come together to worship together. So it says in chapter 7, "Even things without life, giving sound, whether pipe or harp, except they give a distinction in the sounds, how shall it be known what is piped or harped? For if the trumpet give an uncertain sound, who shall prepare himself to battle? So likewise ye, except you utter by the tongue words easy to be understood, how shall it be known what is spoken? For you shall speak into the air. There are, it may be, so many kinds of voices in the world, and none of them is without signification." So look what Paul is saying right here. See, this is the thing about tongues. This is why I know that even Paul, being I speak in tongues, some things you could read about, and you don't have to experience them to know what is being said. But at the same time, to really know what is being said, you have to experience it. There's a difference between knowing intellectually. There's a difference between knowing experientially. I don't know. I'm not saying that right. Through experience, there's a difference. It's a different type of knowing. So the thing is, what Paul is saying here. Now, the practical way this works when you speak it in a tongue, nobody's understanding. You might as well be speaking into the air. But then Paul also goes on to say, you know, there are, it may be, so many kinds of voices in the world, and none of them without signification. Paul's understanding that all these different tongues, you might hear somebody, or shama lama wunga buga aga, you might think that's just gibberish, but you don't know that. There are so many different types of sounds. All of them have meaning to them. You think they don't have meaning to them because you don't understand them. But what he's saying is that they have there's a reason and purpose. But if I don't understand it, it does me no good. Okay? So likewise, this is verse 9. Except ye utter by the tongue words easy to be understood, how shall it be known what is spoken? For you shall speak into the air. There are, it may be, so many kinds of voices in the world, and none of them is without signification. Therefore, if I know not the meaning of the voice, I shall be unto him that speaks a barbarian, and he that speaks shall be a barbarian unto me. Even ye, so ye, for as much as you are zealous of spiritual gifts, seek that you may excel to the edifying of the church. Wherefore, well, let me stop right there. So we see what Paul is trying to do is give us the right mindset when it comes to the church and church practice. We are to seek in our church services to edify the church, not to edify our own selves. This can be applied across the board and other things too. You know, when people want to be the soloists, and when they singing, they're trying to sound so good and hit so many different notes. They're trying to, you know, they ad-libbing all, you know, not to the glory of not to edify people, but to bring glory to themselves. What Paul is trying to come against here is this idea, because, you know, God is doing something in me spiritually. It's for everybody. Everybody needs to know, so I could be glorified. That's not what the gift is for. And when we in church, we must not excel for those things. We excel to the edifying of the church. Now, then he goes on to say, like he said, you know, if I don't know what you're saying to me, you're like a barbarian. And look at this. Just think about a barbarian. How do you think a barbarian should speak? When they talk about a barbarian, barbarians are stigmatized as being like people who are foolish, who don't have a knowledge, you know, just like we might call people Neanderthals, or, you know, things like that. People of another nation who we don't esteem as being highly intelligent and things like that. So we look at barbarians, they had their own language, and if you heard a barbarian speak, their language would sound foolish to you. You wouldn't be able to understand it. So when we look at people speaking in tongues, we don't understand it. It sounds foolish to us. It doesn't mean that they're not speaking the actual language. It might be an actual foreign language, or it might be a heavenly language. You don't know. You do not know. But anyway, let me keep going. Let me share something with you too also. I used to, there's no disrespect to my wife. Don't be mad, baby. I'm just saying this to get a point across. I used to date an Ethiopian girl. Okay? And one time, we went out on a date. It was a 4-person date, man. It was 4 couples. And we went out on a date. And we all sitting at this big table. All the guys are Americans. All the girls are Ethiopians. And they started talking. Man, it sounded like gibberish. All them talking together. it sounded like gibberish to me. I didn't understand it. It sounded worse than Chinese. Just think about the first time you heard Chinese. When the first time you heard it, if you're honest, you probably laughed and you thought they were speaking gibberish. But they were speaking the actual language they can understand. So, you don't know when you hear people speaking these so-called gibberish languages, you do not know if they're speaking the language or not, because you have not heard every language. But anyway, Part 5 coming up.